right, happy Thursday. It's the Kinner and Kev Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. I'm Justin Kinner. He's Kev Nash. Mr. Kev Nash, welcome.
What up, though?
We'll get a full weekend here at some point.
And maybe.
It's June. It's June. You know what I did today?
What's up?
We finalized our high school football schedule. We'll be releasing, I believe, next week. Where KB and I will be, every Friday night for 10 weeks of the regular season. There you go. But I'm excited for the high school football season. I live here in Kettering, and I can hear, like, at night when I'm out, taking care of all the plants that we put thousands of dollars that the wife made to spend on all this. Forgot you don't just plant it and walk away. Got to water it. So outside water and all this stuff, so we don't lose money on our investment here. And I can hear the band playing in the background down the road. So not bad. We're getting closer.
I'm excited about high school football, especially because now I can stop being accused of being a homer and a person that only roots for a certain team in town, because you know what? My nephew is gone. Doesn't play for them anymore. And then my buddy, his son, he's graduated from Miamisburg. So I'm a free agent. Any high school out there that wants Kev Nash as a fan, I am a free agent. You can send me gifts to @1Kev Nash.
A free agent. So
I'm a free agent.
So it's not just about the Centerville Elks.
Yeah, it's not about the Elks. It's not about, Miamisburg Vikings. I'm a free agent. None of my guys, kids play for those teams anymore. I'm a free agent.
Well, we do have quite a few Centerville games on there. So go Elks. You got me, at least. You got me as far as that's concerned. But no, we'll be releasing that here soon. And, you talked about your guy somewhere he's going.
Boomer Sooner, baby.
Not Ohio State.
Nope.
But that's okay. I want to talk a little Ohio State to open up. I think that's fair. We could do that, right?
Yeah.
So I know we talked about this the other day. I don't mean to repeat a segment. I want to play this audio from Urban one more time, because there was an article that came out. Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports, he has a college football podcast. I was talking with him earlier today. He's going to pop on the show with us here soon. But he put out a piece and called what Urban Meyer had to say about Ohio State and expectations this season. He said that is nothing more than the biggest pile of rat poison that you could possibly put out there, not doing the Buckeyes any favor. So the comment, the quote, or the soundbite, if you will, that we are referring to, here's Urban Meyer when asked about the expectations for the upcoming season, before we get into this article, of course, from Dan Wetzel.
But as of now, this is one of the most talented rosters in the last decade, maybe ever. I mean, that's a big statement. They got to play, but you look at the quality of athlete at every position, I've never seen anything like it.
So we highlighted this the other day. We talked about the fact that he said, one of the most loaded rosters in the last 10 years, maybe ever. That caught my attention. And then at the end, he said, never seen anything like it. Obviously caught my attention, caught a lot of Buckeye fans' attention, and even non-Buckeye fans' attention, because what Buckeye fans are hearing is, yes, the season's going to be great. What the haters are hearing is, y'all better win.
Yeah.
Not win the Big Ten, just make the playoff, win a game, maybe two, and then that's it. No, you better win it all. When you got Urban Meyer saying things like, that might be the most loaded roster ever, yeah, I can kind of understand why people, the non-Buckeye believers, are basically not trying to say, well, maybe they are pretty good. Now they're going to use it against you. Well, you better win it all.
Right.
So Dan Wetzel said that he didn't call this rat poison as far as it being his opinion, but basing it off of, this is the type of stuff that Nick Saban would get mad at. This is why I said Urban's very selective with things he says. I don't think he just says things to say things. Dan Wetzel referring to Nick Saban in this article in Yahoo Sports about the fact that anytime articles would have been put out about the loaded rosters that Alabama has had in recent years or throughout the Nick Saban era, he would get angry at those. He would call that, he would put those up in the locker room and call that rat poison.
Yep.
That's Nick Saban's term for articles and for quotes like that. That is rat poison. You're basically setting it out for everyone just to go and get a piece of it, and basically, RIP. And that's what the concern is about a quote like that from Urban Meyer. And Urban knows better, right? And I don't say no better as if he did anything wrong, but I also think he knows the power of his words. He's paid by Fox, part of their big noon kickoff pregame show. He's paid to give big opinions. And, well, Kev, I think this might be one of the biggest ones out there. We're Buckeye believers.
Yeah.
See the shirt, right? Go look at my office. I have the helmet in there and everything. We're Buckeye believers, but man, oh man, I've done this long enough now. I think we both have. We know what's going to happen. If they're not hoisting up that damn trophy at the end of the season, it's going to be quotes like this. It's going to be, people will pull this from articles. They will use this against Ohio State as if Ryan Day was not facing enough pressure. I think the ante has been raised, if you will.
Yeah. So I'll take it from this situation. Urban Meyer's job now is in the media. He's not a coach. Not only is he not a coach, he's not a coach at Ohio State. So he's paid to give his opinion about the roster. He was asked a question about the roster. He gave his honest opinion. I don't have a problem with Coach Meyer doing that, because we're going to get opinions from Nick Saban this upcoming fall. So should we hold everything that Nick Saban says about whomever, be it a former team that he coached in LSU, or another former team that he coached in Michigan State, and now another former team that he coached in Alabama? If he says they're this good, this quarterback is great, and that quarterback has a bad game, is that going to be perceived as rat poison as well? I mean, these are coined terms from Nick Saban. So he's going to go up there on College game day and hang out with the guys and not give positive opinions about former teams because he's scared it's going to hurt them. No, he's going to give his opinion. And that's what Urban Meyer is doing. He's giving his opinion as a media guy. We on the outside are going to constantly parcel and nitpick everything they say, because we're trying to look for a reason to double it back, because there's a segment of the fan base that wants Urban Meyer to be their head coach. There's a segment of the football population that is always going to look at Ohio State like, all you guys do is send guys to the league. You guys don't win championships. You don't win enough to constitute all this the Ohio State University. So 100% right. The coach, Nick Saban, is 100% right. This is rat poison, and it is up to Coach Day to have the blinders on for the guys. That's his job.
Yep.
Urban Meyer's job is to give his opinion about football.
You think Ryan Day sees Urban like, come on, man, what do you do? You're killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. Like, you're killing me here.
100%.
Like, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're playing golf, chuckling it up. Come on, man. Hey, man, they asked me, so I gave my opinion. You guys are good. Slap on the butt and keep it pushing. But, like, I think it's more in a playful manner as opposed to, like, this guy.
You don't think that, just setting the bar high, knowing that maybe he has a little doubt in Ryan Day's ability to get it done because, maybe Urban's craving some Papa John's again, Remember that old shot of him? He hadn't had Papa John's in a while. Maybe he's craving some Papa John's, nonetheless. But so, again, last thing as we wrap up this conversation, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this, but when I talked to Wetzel about this, I was like, rat poison, that's perfect, because I know this is kind of basically what we talked about the other day, but this was a new tie-in as far as that's concerned. But Dan Wetzel in this article says that the problem with the most talented ever talk is it immediately invites comparisons to championship teams of the past, such as the aforementioned 2014 national championship team that was loaded with NFL talent, that although heading into that particular season, no one viewed them as the team that they viewed them as heading into the 2015 season. But we also remember Urban caught a lot of flack for not winning that second straight title, because they don't, we don't give him the benefit of the doubt of what's tough to win back to back. It doesn't happen often. But that roster was loaded when you had Braxton come back, when you had JT, obviously you had Cardale Jones come back, when you had all these guys come back, and you felt you didn't even make the playoff, you didn't even get where you needed to go. I mean, that was a huge disappointment. And that could be what they're facing now. But again, as he goes
Michigan State, right? Michigan State lost.
Yep. So that was that Zeke game. That led to someone getting, it is what it is. Don't ask him certain questions. You were kind of told not to. So it is what it is. But he goes on to say, maybe this is the most talented Ohio State team anyone has ever seen. Maybe even the most talented team anywhere that Meyer has seen. However, good for the old Buckeye coach for offering his opinion. But for Ryan Day, staring at a career-defining season, this probably isn't helping. And that's the end of the article.
That's right. I agree with that 100%. That's completely accurate. I mean, the pressure is always going to be on whomever is the head coach at Ohio State. I mean, think back to the year that Fickell, was the interim head coach. They went 6-7, and people lost their minds as if we were supposed to win the national championship that year. They would get rid of him. He's terrible. That may have been the case, kind of, but when you're out there with a true freshman quarterback and Braxton Miller, who was supposed to redshirt, and then DeVere Posey, who was your number one wide receiver, he's suspended for the entire season or most of the season. Boom Herron suspended for most of the season. Like, they were behind the 8 ball, and we remember what Coach Trussell got fired, quit, whatever the proper terminology, resigned. Was like, when was that? Was that around 4th of July?
It was a little further into not now where the portal, at least you could kind of damage control a little bit. Back then, I mean, everything was picked over. By that point, there was no portal.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, after all that happened, like, I I remember vividly talking to a lot of folks in this building about the upcoming season. Like, oh no, we'll be fine. We'll still win 10 games. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
You're a werewolf.
Like, what are you talking about? No, the defense is great. Like, dude, we're gonna be bad, and we were bad, and then we're great again.
All right. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. How about this? Ohio State today announcing that they will induct 14 new members into its Athletic Hall of Fame. And it will include names like, of course, our very own Braxton Miller. He'll join the likes of Keith Byers, another Dayton, Ohio State Buckeye Hall of Famer on top of that. But Braxton Miller is one, but Gene Smith, the retiring athletic director, Ross Bjork will take over starting in July, which is wild that that's next week, I think. What is happening? And then my favorite name on this outside of Braxton, Greg Oden. Greg Oden was announced earlier today that he'll be a part of this 14-member Hall of Fame class. But Greg Oden, man, that Ohio State basketball, it's a football school, but I'll never forget that little run, that mini run with Jamar Butler and Daquan and obviously Oden and Conley, and just what a loaded roster. Lewis. I mean, they had everything you could imagine. It was, at least they got to the Final Four, but man, oh man, watching Horford win the NBA championship finally, it's kind of wild that, Oden's like, we think he's old or whatever, but Horford just won a championship that played against him in that in that Final Four that year.
Hot take. Don't think he should be in.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think any one and done guy should be in. I don't think Anthony Davis should be in Kentucky's Hall of Fame, like the team, because they won.
How do you do?
I don't think that Carmelo Anthony should be in Syracuse basketball Hall of Fame. I'm cool with him having a retired jersey and the team being recognized, but you as an individual, like if you go, all right, man, look at their stats are at the very bottom because they played one season. I think Hall of Fame level like that is for a student athlete that has participated year after year and sacrificed year after year for the betterment of the program. Like, I think Aaron Kraft deserves it more than a Greg Oden.
Shaw says hot take as well. He doesn't think Braxton should be in either.
I absolutely.
I don't think Miller or Oden should be in.
Absolutely, Braxton Miller should be.
I want to hear his reason why Braxton shouldn't be in, because, I don't understand the reasoning for that. I first disagreed with you, but then with the caveat of being because he was a one and done, I'm like, well, that makes sense. Like that. Like, how do you approach that as well? As we sit here, like with the transfer portal era, like, you know what I mean? Like, you play 1 year somewhere, whether it was coming on the back end, a grad transfer, should grad transfers be considered in line for a Hall of Fame? I
think I don't know if there's a specific amount of time you should be at a school to be eligible for that, but I think they went to the Final Four. And it's gonna sound like I'm hating on Greg Oden. I'm not hating on Greg Oden. I'm just saying, if I'm not even sure how many games he even played at Ohio State.
You're right, because
they went
healthy heading into the tournament. He had to shoot free throws left-handed.
Yeah, I think they went 30-5 that season or something like that. So he played maybe in 24 games that year. You play 24 games and you get into Ohio State Sports Hall of Fame. I just don't.
So he played in more games than I thought.
Okay, how many?
But I think this is the total games when you think about the fact that they played deep into the NCAA
tournament.
Yeah. 32.
32 games.
He started 31 of 32. He played more than I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was in the 20s.
I thought it was less, to be honest. So not less than the 20s, but I thought like you. But he did play more games than I thought, averaged 28 minutes a game. So as far as that's concerned. So
does Greg Oden, does he have a moment that stands out in your mind when you say Greg Oden at Ohio State?
As a center, do many centers have moments just because they don't have that shot or they take over? To me, the game that I'll always remember is when him and Hibbert went head to head, that Ohio State game. Georgetown, just watching those two behemoths go at it down low. I thought that was really cool. But big, shot for shot. Ohio State played Tennessee that year in the NCAA tournament. He had some big putbacks down the stretch, but not that moment, I guess. Like with Lewis, the shot and all that. Yeah,
Lewis.
Stuff. So,
Evan Turner. He has moments that we remember. I just think that you have to have memorable moments as a player and have to play at the school at least 2 seasons in order to go to the Hall of Fame. I think that kind of lowers the bar for what you're expected to do as a student athlete there. I'm not trying to hate on him or anything like that, but if you really look at it, Yeah, technically, I guess he was the best player on the team, I guess. But I would say Mike Conley was the best player on that basketball team.
You also think that guys like Anderson Varejao should have their jersey.
No, not Anderson Varejao. I said
Derek
Fisher. Derek Fisher should have his number 2 retired for the Los Angeles Lakers. For the Lakers. Not ain't safe for the NBA or like the Hall of Fame, but he has a memorable moment. Shouts out to the shot that he made against the Spurs. They had to change the rule for that.
They did. I'll still remember that. I jumped up and screamed bloody murder when I couldn't believe that they did it because I hated the Spurs. But so Roger says, Big Z getting his jersey retired.
Big Z.
So with this, if a grad transfers for 1 year and helps lead a team to a Final Four national championship, I'm more against the grad transfer because you weren't truly that fill in the blank. Greg Oden could have picked any school he wanted to go to. He picked Ohio State. He committed to Ohio State. He played for Ohio State. Led them to a Final Four. That's why it could be a little bit more understanding of it. But I know what you're saying with the one and done thing. I just think, how are these teams going to do this now? Like for Dayton, it's easy. Duran, committed here, played a couple years. Obi played a couple years, but you get these players that are just coming in and out too often. And you're not going to. I've talked to a lot of Dayton fans. The one thing that has led to the Dayton Flyers' passion for their university has just been the connection they have when these kids commit, coming out of high school, and then all of a sudden they're part of these successful teams that go to the tournament and all this, and they've spent their careers there. But now you're just getting guys randomly just coming from all over, and then they transfer out after 1 year. It's kind of hard to say once a Flyer, always a Flyer, once a Buckeye, always a Buckeye, all the stuff that everyone thinks that they're the only school that says that, by the way.
Right.
But hey, once a Raider.
Always a Raider, baby.
A Raider, yeah. So,
speaking of Duran, got that draft invite.
You want to talk about when we had him in last month? When we had him in last month, we had a chance, we knew he was going to get drafted, but at that point, the perception is that Duran was going to be a mid to late second round pick and that it was going to most likely be one of those two-way contracts. By the way, here's the deal. They're not inviting you to New York. They're not giving you a spot in the green room if ESPN hasn't caught wind that you're going to be drafted in the first round.
This isn't an NFL gotcha type of thing.
Like this quarterback. What was it? Will Levis. Yeah.
Will Levis, and you just sitting there and waiting. Like with the NBA, like they want to have those moments and the pictures and stuff like that. We probably should play that interview we had with Duran sometime this week. But he just went off like I wish this news would have came out when he was still here, because I would ask him, what did you do in these workouts to make you go from late second round, mid second round, late first round to, it's a guarantee you're going to the first round?
Can I answer?
Go for it.
It's amazing what happens when you don't just stand your ass on a block and your coach run boring ass plays and run a half court offense for a super athletic. To be fair, I'm joking, but I'm not. The same thing happened with Tumani Kamara last year. Tumani Kamara became a highly sought after draft pick, not like he was a top 10, top 15 pick, but the second that he went and got to play at the combine, and they kept putting on these highlights of him running the floor and then throwing him alley oops and running in transition. When they show, man, this kid's a freak athlete, and in the open floor and the way they play in the NBA, like, oh my gosh, if I had to guess, I think it has something to do with that. It's amazing. Duran, think of all Duran's highlights. When you look at anything that UD puts out, it's turn and dunk, or it's a guard dribbling into the paint, dropping it to him, turn and dunk. That's not what Duran's going to do in the NBA. Right. So if I'm an NBA scout and by the way, scouts are not just tuning into UD social media clips of highlights of that, but like watching those games, I don't know if you're truly getting the best of Duran Holmes playing at Dayton because of the horrible offense that they run, in my opinion. In those NBA, the combine, when they're running up and down more just that freestyle flow, I think that's where you get a chance to kind of see just how much of a freak athlete he actually is. And I do think this is a draft to gamble and take a chance on. And I think that's what some of these teams are doing. I think the upside for him really high. And I'm not saying it's Denver, but it sounds like all the rumors out there saying it's Denver that promised him that thing. That'd be pretty wild to go play with Jokic and those guys, and he'll be in the championship picture right off the bat.
Finishing at the rim. My thing about the college game, it's totally different from the pro game. I mean, you go back and look at Jaylen Brown, his freshman year at Cal. I think he averaged like 8 points or something like that.
Who? Sorry?
Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown, okay.
Just won finals MVP. If you were to tell me based off of his freshman year at Cal, like he was going to turn into the player he is, the highest paid player ever in NBA history contract-wise, and the finals MVP, I would say you would be smoking something. Like the games are just totally different. Like it's a much faster paced game in the NBA at every school. I mean, you look at some of the guys that came out of even Duke, like, yeah, when Kyrie was at Duke, he was a wizard with the ball. And a lot of those things translated. But some of the guys on his team, like, still made it to the NBA. And, like, to be honest, like, Kyrie was the second option on those teams. And I mean, you look at Austin Rivers, his freshman year at Duke, you would have thought, like, oh my goodness, he's the next coming. He turned out to be a rotational player in the NBA. I think the NBA game is just totally different from the college game, that you're, I won't say not allowed to really show your skill set, but it's like, just like, hey man, what you do at the high school level isn't what you're gonna do at the college level, and dang sure ain't what you're gonna do from college to the pros. Like, you know, hey man, it's a lot of dudes, hey man, sit there on the wing and wait for me to pass you the ball in the NBA, or hey man, we running and gunning, pick, roll, lob, dunk. Different
like
game.
I said, he shot all the way to the first round because AG was holding him back. I say that, but look, there's a lot of good people in Duran's circle that I don't think that if they actually felt that was the case, he would not have come back to Dayton last year.
True that.
Unless our guys at Lee's just paid him an abnormal amount of money as far as that's concerned. Someone just said that, have we talked about the JJ Redick news yet? I'm refreshing Twitter. I don't know if there is JJ Redick news. Is there JJ Redick
There's
news?
no news, at least that I see.
That's what,
more rumors.
Roger, I'm not saying you're wrong. I just haven't seen anything scroll across yet.
Keep an eye on that. I just
hold on. Use a tease. Use a tease.
We have information about JJ Redick. I just found it.
Thanks to our producer, Roger.
Yes, it's the real account too.
It's the real. Oh yeah. All right, Kidder and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Roger says he got a new job, all capital letters. We're going to talk about that when we come back. People throwing shade at Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's yet to sign a deal with the College Game Day, and his reasoning has people talking. We have that coming up around the corner. Chris Henry Jr., an Ohio State commit, says he's still going to follow through with his summer visits with LSU and Oregon. But don't worry, he's a Buckeye. He's not going anywhere, he says. I don't understand this. We'll talk about that coming up around the corner. This is what you get for going on a vacation for a week. You got away from it when you're right back. More of the Kidder and Kev Show when we come back. All right, and we are back. It's the Kidder and Kev Show, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We've got breaking news that we're about to get into. The Lakers have a new coach. We got some college football stuff to get into. We opened up with technically a repeated segment from the other day, Kev, with the Urban Meyer thing, just because of that article from Yahoo Sports and Dan Wetzel. I have another repeated topic I want to get into in a bit about, we talked about with Dave Biddle last week about with the 12-team college football playoff now, and now it's not so much about the playoff itself, but it is about the fact that in your conference, you combine the 12-team college football playoff with that new number being about 3, that elimination number. You lose 3 games and you're not making the playoff.
Right.
But now you have teams like USC and Oregon and Washington, and all those teams in the Big Ten. You're going to be playing a significantly tougher schedule. Our team's going to continue scheduling hard in the non-conference. So we had that big debate about whether or not we think that Ohio State will actually keep on the schedule your Georgia, your Texas, and your Alabama, because those are the 3 big series over the next 6 years. So we had that debate last week. Well, one thing that Biddle had said is that he doesn't know if teams will actually pull the plug on it because of the perception of looking weak if you do. Well, an example of a bigger program pulling the plug on a big non-conference matchup has led to this particular big-name coach getting just beat up in the media and by fans. So we'll get to that coming up in a bit.
You got my interest sparked.
That was good, right? That was good.
Good tease, man.
A little basketball conversation before we get to JJ Redick.
Absolutely. So not to be Mr. Negative Nelly over here, but this goes to show people don't care about what's going on in the WNBA, like at all. They're only here for the fights. They're only here for the drama. Because last night, Caitlin Clark dropped 18 points, dished out 12 assists. 18 points, grabbed 12 rebounds, dished out 6 assists in a win. They won 3 games in a row. They've climbed up into another playoff positioning. They're playing great basketball. They are playing great basketball currently, and she's balling out of control. And then today, Angel Reese just broke a record for rookies in the WNBA with 7 straight games with a double-double. She had 12 points and 18 rebounds, was 6 of 9 from the field. So shooting great, grabbing a ton of rebounds and scoring and breaking records. Nobody's talking about either one of them, not even the person that they claim that they all came to see. She's balling right now. We're not talking about her balling. We're just, oh, yeah, she had this. Moving on. But if she'd have got slung to the ground or God forbid, fouled, they'll be talking about it left or right. This is what we should be talking about. This is like, oh, she's breaking through because she started out very, very rough. But, oh, she's starting to figure it out. Oh, that's what happens when you play more games. You start to figure out, okay, I got to attack her from this angle. I got to slow my pace down at this point. I got to drop it off to this player. They're getting better. That's what we should be talking about, them getting better as basketball players instead of the rigmarole. So shouts out to Caitlin Clark. She's out here balling. This is what we all truly should be wanting to see them play great basketball, not the rigmarole that's going on social media. So shouts out to Caitlin Clark. Shouts out to Angel Reese. They both balling.
Yeah, when you're not playing 11 games in 20 days, you're actually getting some rest between. It's amazing how that works. But yeah, only rebuttal, or not really rebuttal. But the thing is, though, that's not wanting that for that women's game. That's something that even the men's game does. I mean, I don't think we do that with the men's game. Like if a player's playing well, like LeBron, if he plays well for 4 or 5 straight games, we're not doing that. But man, if LeBron drops 30 and they're 0-5, it's 30 in 5 straight games and they're 0-5, is LeBron scoring too much? Is he not passing the ball enough? So that's like, I'm with you, but I don't know. Like it'd be if it bleeds, it leads, right? Like that was always
Bingo.
like that was the journalistic integrity thing that they always would preach to you. As far as that goes, but nonetheless. But Kidder and Kev 1410. Shut up. 1410 ESPN. Right?
Bleeds and leads. No, you went to Wright State talking like that. I know who that teacher used to say.
We're not, let's change subjects real quick. Real quick. What? No, so JJ Redick and the Lakers, the world's worst kept secret. Although there was a little weird, obviously you had to take a little detour because the Lakers were like, that little meme where the guy and his wife are walking down, but he's turning and looking at. I think that was always the Lakers and JJ Redick until obviously Dan Hurley was walking by. Yeah. They checked out behind a little bit, and then they turned back their attention right towards JJ Redick. Not a surprise. I would have been surprised if all of a sudden the Pistons, who moved on from their coach, if all of a sudden they swooped in, and that might have played a role in it. I have no clue what the Lakers were waiting on to get this done. Maybe it was on JJ's side. Don't think it's a surprise that Detroit all of a sudden has a coaching opening, and JJ's being rumored to go there. That all of a sudden, randomly at just about 3-4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, they get the news out there.
Crazy.
I guess it is 1 o'clock out there, but still,
it's pretty crazy. I mean, obviously JJ Redick has been a hot candidate with the Lakers, and it's crazy enough that he's really only been connected to the Lakers. I know after Monty Williams was let go by the Detroit Pistons, like his name came up there for a hot second, but like everybody like, yeah, it's gonna be the Lakers if it's gonna be anything. But like this coaching carousel, I mean, so Darvin Ham gets let go, so you have the Lakers opening, and then now Monty Williams let go by the Pistons, so you have that opening, and now JJ takes the Lakers job, so that leaves the Pistons job, the Cavs job, and guess what? The seat along Doris Burke on NBA playoffs and finals, like, so him and Mike Breen, so you got that spot opening as well. My question is, who slides into that spot? Because the NBA coaching thing, man, who knows? Who has any idea who's going to get hired? I am officially on your side with this. It's not about the X's and O's. It's not about the X's and O's. You could take Coach Sargent up at Wright State. He knows the same amount of X's and O's as every coach in the NBA. Every single one of them. Every single one of you. So Coach AG, he knows the X's and O's just like all of them. It's about the connection with the player. Thinking back to what was the biggest problem with Kobe and Shaq? They couldn't get along. Oh, boom. You drop Phil Jackson in there, the Zen Master. They get along. They win 3 championships. It's really all about the relationship between the player and the coach. And then you hear or believe any of these rumors that are coming out of Cleveland about Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen wanting JB Bickerstaff out of there. I think the writing's on the wall. It's really about the connection between the player and the coaches and making sure that the players are going to play hard for that coach. So it's not about the X's and O's. So I'm officially on your side of that. I can't ever say, well, he knows the game better than this game. No, they don't. They all know the game the same. They know it. Can you get the players to buy in?
Yeah, the one trend across all sports right now is just how young coaches and / managers are. I mean, we're watching former players. Who's the catcher? Why am I drawing a blank for a bit? I know he didn't work out right away, but the catcher for the Cubs that won the World Series when they beat your Guardians. Why am I drawing a blank?
I
Guys,
forgot his
help
name.
me out in the chat. My apologies. He's no longer the manager there, but obviously Council's over there now. But like we're seeing like players instantly go from, retired to being in the conversation for coaching hires. You look at Antonio Pierce, a young hire with the Raiders over on the football side. You're seeing young head, and forget former players. It's just the youth. It's the youth of it. Because when I grew up, when you'd see a coach, it was a guy that looked like he's in his 50s and 60s, a guy that, had been around the block a time or two, that knew the game, that knew the ins and outs. But now I feel like there's never been more of a disconnect between older generations and younger generations. And maybe I'm naive in that. I believe that there should always be that to a certain extent, just because there's not a lot of comparisons. But like the fact that Phil Jackson could connect with guys in their 20s and 30s when he was old, how is that no longer the case now? Because now I feel like teams in all sports, even college basketball, they're going younger. They want, it's like, I think it's a change in the way that the youth perceives their leader as far as that's concerned. Maybe it's because we're watching the 2 old boobs that try to run this country from time to time. Maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know. Stick to sports. But you guys, like, we mock older people now because we say, well, there's no connection there. JJ Redick just seems to be younger, more in tune with the personalities, maybe be able to connect with them more. I have no idea what it is, but it's not just a JJ thing. Look across all sports. It's weird to see an older coach now in any capacity, just with the trend of where we're going right now.
I mean, even Monty Williams. I mean, I know he's like on his 3rd job, but Monty Williams is still a young guy. I mean, I remember his playing days. I mean, Willie Green, the head coach of the Pelicans.
David Ross. Thank you, Shaw.
I remember his playing days, played with Iverson, with Philadelphia and stuff like that. So it's a lot of younger guys. I mean, Stephen Volt, the manager of the Guardians, he's only 40 years old. So like, it's just a thing. Funny enough, when I went home from Mother's Day, I went over to my dad's house and we're looking at pictures or whatever. He pulls up this picture.
Your dad's house on Mother's Day?
Yeah, I gotta go see my pops. Gotta see what's up with my pops. So I see a picture and I was like, oh man, how old was you in this pic? He was 42. In that picture, he looked older than I do right now, and I'm older than he was in the picture. So I just think like guys in the 80s and 70s, they just look older. They had the pork chop beards, thick mustaches and stuff like that, and wore suits all the time. Like, I just think like nowadays you really can't tell how old people are by looking in their face. Like, you make this joke all the time, like, man, people never know how old you are, and like, and then you tell them like, hey, he doesn't look it. But like, I think that's a real thing, man. I think people from the 80s and 70s, they just looked older, even though they're like literally the same age.
It was the cigarettes.
I think
that's what
concur.
it was. It had to be
Big
the cigs.
Six.
It had,
Big Six.
just ripping heaters constantly.
Big Marlboros.
Roger says, Lou Piniella, but no. David Shaw says David Ross. So yes, it was Ross. That's who it was, the catcher that like instantly, whatever.
Bad times.
But yeah, I look, when people say this, will the JJ Redick thing work? I don't know. What's your definition of work? Not be fired in 2 years? To me, that's working. I don't think the Lakers, they said the last time a coach lasted longer than 3 years with the Lakers was Phil Jackson. That's been a minute. He was a beloved coach in the NBA to now not a liked coach by fans and players. Like, that's how far, that's how long it's been. So I don't know so JJ Redick, now the head coach
to you.
What's working to me? That's what I don't know. It's easy to say, well, lead them to a championship, but like next year, they're a playing team. They're a playing team next year. Now I know they're being rumored to. We talked about this player the other day, drafted by the Cavs. He's hopped around a few times. Markkanen, or what's his name?
Oh, Lauri Markkanen.
He, is he the missing piece to putting the Lakers over the top in the
better
West?
Than Rui.
As far as that's concerned, so maybe, but like great that AD kind of put to rest a little bit of the narrative about him, street clothes and all this, that, and the other. But can he do it for another full year? LeBron, another year older. Can you continue to rely on him to be the guy to drive the bus as far as that's concerned? So JJ Redick, I guess your job is to keep the train on the tracks. Don't let it derail. If they're healthy, they need to be contending. If they're not healthy, obviously that's your built-in excuse. But yeah, I have no clue. I know we're supposed to give our opinion and we're supposed to have an answer. But everyone always has it's not going to work. It's not going to work. But when I counter with, well, what does working in your definition mean? People like me, I don't know. Because realistically, you would sound like a goofball if you said they have to win a championship. I don't know if the Lakers, not JJ Redick, I don't think they're a coach away from being an NBA championship team with how deep that West is right now.
Everything tells me you're right, but winning the championship, that's working. Like, it's the Los Angeles Lakers. There's been many a coach fired from the Lakers for not winning championships. Championship coaches have been fired. Rudy Tomjanovich coached the Lakers for like 2 weeks, got fired. Frank Vogel coached them to a championship and also got fired. So working is winning a championship. Like, that's the definition. I think it's unfair, but like, that's the culture that you breed with the Los Angeles Lakers. That's not only the culture that they have, that's what the fan base demands. And then when you throw in one of the greatest players of all time, LeBron James, and then a top 75 player in Anthony Davis, the expectations are, well, hey man, if you got two top 75 players, you should be winning a chip. The Celtics got two of the top 50 guys in the league. They just won a chip. Why can't we? The Nuggets got two of the top 50 guys in the league. They just won it last year. Why can't we? Like, that's just the reality of the situation.
And I think context always matters too. Look, at the end of the day, look, AD is not. I know. Context is huge for me these days. Where LeBron's at age-wise.
Indeed.
AD, can he stay healthy back-to-back seasons? No one wants to buy those excuses, but that matters. We talked about the Spurs. They had, look at all the players. Tim Duncan technically counts as a top 75 player that the Spurs had, but look at those last couple. He was still very, very good those last couple seasons, but he wasn't the MVP Tim Duncan that playing at the level of which got him to be that label as far as that's concerned. But that's what makes the NBA fun. There's so many labels. There's so many things to justify, like first round pick, top 5 pick. Sometimes if you're a second round pick and lead a team to a title, that bolsters your resume because, oh man, look, you overcame so much, and you don't see that often nonetheless. But yeah, JJ Redick, I wonder, in all seriousness, do they keep the podcast?
No.
I listened to Doug Gottlieb's little radio show the other day. His intro for his show.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my ADD took over there. That's where I wanted to transition to with that finish. So do you think they keep the podcast?
No. I was doing something else when I almost cussed on the radio.
Oh.
But no, you go for it. Because I don't think so. Much like you were talking about with Doug Gottlieb, or that we were talking about Doug Gottlieb. I don't think that it's fair to, do a podcast critiquing other NBA teams when you have a team of your own to be coaching and playing for.
especially because the context of that podcast that you follow very closely.
Yes.
So, and I don't follow it very closely. I follow the clips. Like when they show the clips, I'll tune into those.
It's good.
Like it's
I love
good,
the pod.
but
I
like,
love it.
are they talking about a lot of other teams?
So at
Like
first,
how do you defend the Warriors?
at first it was all about that, but slowly but surely they got into the usual rhetoric.
Yeah, my media.
Yeah, slowly but surely. But it wasn't done in an aggressive way. But nonetheless, I mean, they ultimately got into it about that type of stuff.
So that's where it'd be like, the other adjustment we all as fans have to make too. When people say, well, I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how it's going to work. Players have active podcasts now. You look at Mike Parsons in the NFL, obviously Draymond Green. I think a fair question is, are those?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Are those distractions though?
Yeah.
To be honest, I love when you have drama with the Warriors. I kind of love tuning into his podcast to see how he's going to talk his way out of it. And to his credit, this is why I like Draymond. He talks right into it. He don't scurry from it, man. Like I screwed up. It's like we all have that friend, right?
Yeah.
Like, dude, what happened? Yeah, had too much to drink. My bad.
And
I'm
wild night, right?
So how can you argue with that? Like, we all have that friend, right? Like, it is what it is.
Crazy night, man.
So I don't know if it'll be a distraction or not. I know we said that the Doug Gottlieb thing would be a distraction, but man, they're leaning into that.
What did happen on the intro you were talking about?
Intro, Fox Sports, blah blah blah. Now the head men's basketball coach of the University of Green Bay, Phoenix, Wisconsin, Doug Gottlieb. Like, that's the intro to the show. It's a great show. That should be the show that's carried on Fox Sports every day. That would be a much improved show right there if they just, but I'm just saying, Doug Gottlieb. So they're leaning into it. Look at all that extra press that they're getting because of that, right? Like, so again, but when they're losing, it's going to be a distraction. Yesterday, when and again, regardless, I don't want to get into the Caitlin Clark-Angel Reese thing, but he's given his very aggressive take on the race debate between those two. That's great. Do it. You're confident giving those types of takes, more power to you. But what happens when that gets in the way of, let's be honest, he took the white side. Like, if we're just going to be honest in the little debate, right? Like, so what happens if that impacts on the recruiting trail? What happens if that, leads to everything's great. Your players love you, but there's a controversial thing that's happening that includes, social injustice, whatever, and you give an opinion that maybe doesn't fit the players on your team. Now, any coach can do this and have an opinion on Facebook, social media, but on this national radio show, I'm fascinated by the dynamics of this new era that's not just with players in media, but coaches in media as well, apparently. So
I think it's we talk a ton about player empowerment, but shoot, you're right. Like, the coaches are having podcasts. I mean, I remember before Ohio State's former head coach, basketball coach Chris Holtman, he had a podcast. It was out of season. He wasn't doing the podcast during the season, but like, he still had a podcast to give his hot takes and talk to other coaches and stuff like that. I don't have a problem with them having a podcast at all. And I just think for like JJ, like first year being a head coach, like might need to focus on being a head coach instead of like, all right, man, I got to do show prep from a podcast instead of breaking down film or, coming up with defensive schemes or whatever the case may be, or coming up with some type of creative way to get more morale around the team. I mean, we hear all the stuff about Phil Jackson giving each individual player on team books to read and, talking to the player about the books and, meditation and things of that nature. Like, and then you're going to throw a podcast on top of that. And then you're going to throw a podcast on top of that with LeBron James. Like, oh no, man.
You know how Colin Cowherd does a thing on his show where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. What if coaches start, hey, all right, we were tied here, didn't call a timeout, where JJ was wrong. Think they have enough? Will they put their ego aside to admit to some of that? I don't know, but that's what Roger said. They should just break down all their losses.
Hey,
actually combine your film with the podcast.
Hey,
there you go.
For sale.
Mm-hmm. Kenner and Cap 1410 ESPN Radio, hour number 2 coming up next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Kev Nash, Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM. We'd like to know our opinion about Jay McCarthy. Jay Cheater McCarthy.
Indeed.
But I thought this was interesting. So when the Vikings originally moved on from Kirk Darnold, I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, oh, okay. They're turning their attention towards the draft. Sam Darnold is clearly a backup quarterback. That is not a guy that you look at to say, okay, we're losing Cousins, but so early in free agency, we're going to go get that guy to be our quarterback without exploring other options. But they had made up their mind that, okay, rookie quarterback is where they were going to go.
Right.
And today's day and age, if this was the 90s and the early 2000s, if this story would have come out, I would not have thought anything of it because that's just the status quo of how you operate, being patient when you draft a rookie quarterback, right? But that's kind of not how they do things anymore. Now it's baptism by fire a little bit. And there's some rookie quarterbacks that I do think need to be coddled a bit because I don't know if, shaky offensive line, no weapons in the pass game. Like, are you truly going to gauge how good this individual is? I think Justin Fields is a prime example of that during his time in Chicago. So with that being said, I found this very interesting that Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy has less than a 10% chance of starting week 1, according to Albert Breer.
Wow.
So Albert Breer says more so it's about Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold. The former put together a detailed step-by-step development plan for McCarthy that'll require the quarterback to hit certain milestones before the team presses him into real action. My takeaway on all this stuff, I always say, I hate when coaches try to be the smartest man in the room. They try to do things that like, well, here's the way we're going to do things. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it. And that's how you end up behind. To me, if McCarthy, you drafted him as high as you did, we're hearing that, from his former coach, he's the best quarterback in this draft. We're hearing from personnel around the Vikings that, man, there's not one single person that regrets taking him, that he is the real deal. We hear all these great things coming out. And now there's like some kind of tiered. You ever have that friend that, hey, how's it going? Haven't talked to you in a while. Hey, so I want to talk to you about this new line of products I have. And you're part of a pyramid scheme. That's what they sound like. It's a part of a, he's a part of this developmental step-by-step plan that, that's limiting him. Give me a break. JJ McCarthy, if he's the real deal, this sounds like they're putting stuff out there because maybe, just maybe, he's the bum that we all thought he was going to be because he was a cheater at Michigan. Okay, he's a cheater. He's studying his playbook. I think he's confused. He's like, at Michigan, we studied the other team's playbook. He's really confused at how they do things in Minnesota. I don't get it, Kev, but no, when you hear something like that, wouldn't surprise you or me in the 90s or early 2000s, but it's 2024. This isn't how the NFL operates. Less than 10% chance that J.J. McCarthy is the Vikings starting quarterback come week 1. When you have Addison, when you have Justin Jefferson, when you have the great tight end, when you have all these weapons, come on now. He needs, I don't know what to read as far as this is concerned.
I'm blown away that the number is that high or low, whatever the proper term is, that 10%. Like, so is Sam Darnold just balling out of control like that? Or is this something that they just said, hey, we're going to just bring this guy along slowly? Like, or is he just not picking up things? And now they've come up with this tiered system in order for him to start. I would look at Sam Darnold and say, maybe the coaching staff is enamored with Sam Darnold because let's not forget Sam Darnold was a top 5 pick, went to the Jets, and he moved over to the Panthers, and him and Baker Mayfield were playing out there. And then he went out to San Francisco, was backing up Brock Purdy. But like Sam Darnold has always had all the tools. He's always had the big arm. He's always had the wow factor stuff. Maybe their coaching staff has fallen in love just like the Jets fell in love before it with him, drafting him in the first round. Maybe it's that. Maybe like, hey, man, we're going to go ahead and fix Sam Darnold, and we're going to wait to see if this J.J. McCarthy pops. But to your point, you used a first-round pick on this dude. A first-round pick on this dude, man. Like, I don't see it. I don't see it. Like, you could have got another offensive weapon, an offensive lineman, somebody on defense, for goodness sakes. I mean, basically everything that we said about the Atlanta Falcons when they drafted Michael Penix, you could have said for the Minnesota Vikings as well.
But the reason we didn't is because there was no indication that J.J. McCarthy was not going to be the starting quarterback for this team. As far as that's concerned. And Shaw says not just a first round pick, a top 10 pick on top of that. If J.J. McCarthy is your pick number 14 or pick number 16, And it's like, well, there was a lot of positive, we felt really good about our evaluation of him throughout the draft process, and he fell to us at 16. So we had no choice but to take him. Right. You're not here. I don't think this is that big a deal. Maybe it is but it's just, would we have ever heard of this tiered system if it maybe wasn't for, is he struggling? Then the other thing too, Vikings rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy reviews the playbook and play names with his fiance Katya, I don't know her name, Katya Karopis, every night. That's what it says. It has helped JJ pick up the offense very quickly.
I'm not touching that. Don't you dare. Don't you say it.
I mean, to be fair to him, I wouldn't study very well either. Honestly, have you seen her?
I have.
She's very good looking.
So has JJ's dad. If you ever seen that.
Oh no, footage. I forgot about that. Pervert.
Shouts out to JJ, man. He's winning on and off the field. But no, man, come on, dude. Come on. I am a person that says, hey man, just because you're drafted in the first round doesn't mean all right, man, we're just gonna put you out there to start. If they were to just come out and say hey, we're gonna play the best guy, whoever wins out in camp, no problem with it all. And if Sam Darnold beat him out in camp, then so be it. But to put this out there to the media, hey man, we have these thresholds for him to be able to start. I think that's silly. I think it's just silly. Let's just basically do it the right way, quote unquote. Best man wins the job. And if internally you don't think he's the best man right now, then he doesn't have to start. But now you have added questions from the media about him. It's you and I who don't think he should have been a first round pick. So I'm sure we're not the only people out here that don't think he should have been a first round pick. So there's question marks about that as well. Then you're going to get people up there in Minnesota say, hey, man, we needed a defensive end. We needed a cornerback. We had our pick of the litter. And you got this guy who's not even going to start the first year. What's up with that? And God forbid, Sam Darnold go out there and turn into Sam Darnold back at USC. If they actually fix Sam Darnold, then what are you going to do? Then what are you going to do? Dang, we fixed Sam Darnold. Great. But wait, now we got to re-sign him. We can't just let him walk. We got to bring him back. And then, oh man, we could have used somebody on the defensive side of the ball instead of drafting JJ because we fixed Sam Darnold. So it's a world of hurt for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's okay, is this them releasing this? Is this a thing of they're protecting themselves or are they protecting JJ McCarthy? And I think it could be a combination of both, as far as that's concerned. And again,
I think it's more about protecting themselves.
I haven't heard any reports of him performing poorly throughout these camps or anything like that. And I don't know how you exactly tell. I mean, they look like Brett Favre in a Wrangler commercial. They're just dropping back in jeans and throwing. It's. I mean, you can't really tell what these guys are doing.
And you can't even tell in preseason anymore either.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny
victim of it.
Preseason MVP last year, dude.
Balling out of control,
unstoppable as far as that's concerned. But we'll keep an eye on that, no doubt. Kenner and Kev Show 1410 ESPN Radio. Shaw says this is why I didn't want JJ to go there. Hold on. No,
well, that's exactly why you would want him to go there. Look at all those weapons.
This is exactly the thing. This is where I said quarterbacks like Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt because they're not Justin Fields going to a team with no weapons when he was drafted. They are not, why am I drawing a blank on the Alabama quarterback? The Panthers,
Bryce Young.
They're not Bryce Young. Where he plays on the worst team in the NFL. He's not Justin Fields playing on one of the worst teams in the NFL. You are JJ McCarthy, national championship winning quarterback. JJ McCarthy didn't cheat, won it fair and square. You are JJ. You're playing with Justin Jefferson. You got Addison. You got the why do I always forget the tight end's name? I'm forgetting everything today. It's one of them days. But weapons galore. If there's ever a time for a rookie quarterback to look like CJ Stroud, it's this time. Yeah. Same thing with Caleb Williams. If Caleb Williams reports start coming out that he's not looking good in camp and preseason and he struggles early in the regular season, he will not get the benefit of the doubt. It's not, I don't think a Bears at this point, I do not believe it has anything to do with the Bears front office if Caleb Williams doesn't work out. And I don't think it has anything to do with the Vikings if JJ McCarthy doesn't work out. The only thing that the Vikings did that was incorrect was possibly drafting a quarterback that wasn't worthy of being drafted that high. That's not, oh man, they did wrong by JJ McCarthy. They just got it wrong by drafting JJ McCarthy, in my opinion, at least as we sit here right now in June.
So reviewing the draft, Caleb went 1 to the Bears. Jaden Daniels went 2 to the Commanders. We always forget about this dude, and we haven't heard anything about him. At least I haven't. Drake May to the Pats. Have you heard anything about Drake May?
The Pats have been very, very. The only thing that we've heard about the Pats is one of the many Tom Brady roast / my God, this guy just gets the red carpet thrown out. It'd be good for Tom Brady, but I know what you're talking about. We talk about age all the time. How about Bill Belichick? You want to talk about a guy that is not studying the playbook, if you know what I mean, and he's scoring all the time, if you know what I mean. How about Hims?
He's the man.
Buy stock in Hims is all I got to say.
He's the man. And then obviously Michael Penix Jr. going 8 to the Falcons, who's also going to be being a backup this season. Then JJ went 10 to the Vikings. Forgot about this. And this is another thing that gets lost in the sauce. We forget Bo Nix went 12 to the Broncos.
Mm-hmm. Very quiet out there too. But their coach, he's very keen on keeping everything in-house. He doesn't like to talk, say things out loud to the media.
Man, I forget about some of these guys that got drafted, man.
It's actually been a fairly quiet offseason. No noise. Just no noise for these guys. Like, this is usually we're used to these kind of stories popping up a lot with all the guys. Like, it's been fairly quiet. I mean, the only news I've heard of Caleb Williams, he's at Fashion Week this week.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
Paris. We are in an era now where the money is so big for athletes, and not only professional athletes, but student athletes. Guys don't get in trouble like that anymore. I mean, the college guys are getting in trouble for speeding like morons. But like the professional guys aren't getting in like that type of trouble that they used to get into. I think it's because the money is so big. Like, they're actually taking advantage of some of the opportunities. Like,
and
hey man, I'm going
money. And you meant no.
I'm going to go to the club tonight. Let me get car service instead of getting a DUI and things of that nature. I not to say I want people to get in trouble, but like, this is the time of year, silly season where there's time in between camp and, I'm going to party it up before I go to camp and have to shut it down for the season. Like, where guys got in trouble. Like, we're not seeing that at that rate anymore.
So, and real quick, so Shaw has me distracted.
Hello, Shaw.
Yeah, I missed the gas mask stuff when that. So
yeah,
like, oh man, they're hitting the paint. They're going hard in the paint before the season starts. Shaw says the origination is why I said I didn't want him to go there. Yes, the weapons are there, but the organization is a joke. Question: who has ever viewed the Vikings organization as a joke?
As a joke?
I don't think that Vikings are a joke. Then he turns it on us and he says, you both just talked a whole segment about this decision and how it didn't make sense. I bring up why I didn't want him to go there and you attack it. I'm confused because a lot of good organizations still make questionable decisions. And I don't think the Vikings are a joke of an organization. I think they get a lot right. I mean, there's a reason that they're never in full rebuild mode. They're in retool mode at times. I just don't get this JJ McCarthy thing. I think that a lot of teams take gambles on quarterbacks. I just think that they gambled incorrectly. I don't think that makes them a joke of an organization.
I'm looking at the NFL teams right now, and I'm trying to think who I believe is a joke organization. Who's a joke organization in the NFL, in your opinion? Because I don't think the Minnesota Vikings are a joke.
Well, I would say, too, I think we're all fickle with this stuff, too, because everyone's a quarterback away from an organization not being a joke of an organization. I mean, the Bengals are a prime example. Whether you have examples to prove that they're actually not that bad of an organization or not, the perception was that the Bengals were a joke of an organization. They draft Joe Burrow, and now they're a very well-run organization, right? So the Browns, same thing. Even when they get it right, they're still a joke of an organization. But again, how did the Bengals erase that perception? They had to get to a Super Bowl. They had to win back-to-back AFC championships. The Browns, I mean, they started to kind of shake some of that off last year because they were a great story. 5 different quarterbacks. Joe Flacco was fun, but they moved on from him. And now you got to go back to the dreary, coverage of the quarterback that is Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, I don't think Cleveland's a joke of an organization because I think they've gotten a lot of stuff right. They have put together a really good roster, but that's the fan in me. I think that they're still viewed as that. I want to say the Colts sometimes, but then they just keep going out there and winning. Their owner I think their owner embarrasses them at times.
That's a good point.
I'd say the Commanders, although they've tried to fix some stuff, I think that's been a joke of a run organization as far as that's concerned. Chicago, I think, to me, has to be viewed as that. But again, they get Caleb Williams, so it feels weird saying that because now there's a lot of positive energy in the direction of Chicago. Who would you put in that category at this point?
The only surefire organization in the NFL that I consider a joke is the Jets.
And yeah,
like I think that's hands down the most jokey, if that's a word, organization in football.
Them and Cleveland are very similar, though. They do
True.
they do some things right.
True.
You want to buy in because they got their quarterback, but then the quarterback either gets injured and out for the year or has suspended for half the year and then injured for the back half of the year. I put Cleveland and the Jets are those two teams that even when they get it right, there's still people questioning whether they got it right.
I would even put the Cowboys in.
Ooh, that's a good one. I wouldn't, but again, against, but what if they won? I mean, they win the division every once in a while, but they don't win in the playoffs. They don't get to NFC championship games. They haven't been to a Super Bowl yet, win a Super Bowl in over 30 plus years. Yeah, like, I mean, the branding helps them, you know, but the New York brand isn't enough to save the Jets as far as that's concerned either. So I don't know. Yeah, I think you can make a good argument. You look at the NFC especially. I mean, I see a lot of teams that have been relevant playoff-wise, all of them except for the Cowboys and Washington. And the Lions. The Lions are new money, if you want to call them that.
So the reason I don't look at the Lions as a joke, and I'm probably wrong, but when I see the Detroit Lions, I don't think, oh man, they're never going anywhere. They're never going to win it. But when I see the Jets, I just think they're never going to win it. And I think the common denominator between the Jets and the Cowboys is meddling owners.
Yep.
So, I mean, they look at Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers, oh man, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. There's no doubt about it. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best to ever do it. Well, they also used to have another Hall of Fame quarterback that came from Green Bay. He stunk up the joint too. So, like, for people out there that are Jets fans that just think like, oh man, not his Achilles heel, he's gonna come in here and be the gunslinger that he once was with, you know, the Green Bay Packers. That didn't happen with the last Green Bay Packers quarterback he had. So it's going to work with this one. The common denominator is Woody Johnson is the owner. The common denominator with the Dallas Cowboys, from Tony Romo to Dak Prescott to Zeke to whatever running back to whatever to CeeDee Lamb to whatever other wide receiver to T.O. is Jerry Jones. Like, when I see the Dallas Cowboys, I think it's all going to end bad, because it always does. And to have an owner constantly coming out talking about, oh, yeah, we're going to get this contract worked out. And now we are, about a month away from training camp, about to pop off. And we're about to be in the second cycle of Dak Prescott not having a contract situation handled. Like, I just think joke. I don't think you're serious about this. You say you're serious, but your actions show you're not.
I don't think it's a joke, only because it's not like it's a Joe Burrow or a quarterback that you are 1,000,000% confident in. I don't think the Cowboys are 1,000,000%. I think they pay him because they have to, not because they want to.
Fair.
The Bengals wanted to pay Joe Burrow. They had to pay Joe Burrow, and they wanted to pay Joe Burrow. The Cowboys they have. There's a difference with the Cowboys. They have to pay Dak Prescott. I don't think they want to pay Dak Prescott, but they also know, in the words of Phil Castellini, where are you going to go as far as that?
They want to pay him, but just not 65 M's.
I mean, and the Cowboys are a weird organization because they win a lot of games. They win all the time. They've won 11 plus games 3 straight years now. I mean, they win a lot of games, and with that quarterback that they don't want to pay, but they have to pay as far as that's concerned.
It just shows, man, that stats aren't real football.
The Jags, another one too.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
You know.
And the Panthers too. But they had this graphic on ESPN, I believe it was today, and they were comparing Dak's stats and Patrick Mahomes' stats. Basically identical stats. But we all know we'd rather have Mahomes. Like when you and I have these discussions / arguments about players and you bring up stats, I'm just like, it don't matter. It don't matter. It just doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we know who we want. We know who we want because, you know, you made the comparison last year, not last year, but the year before last, whatever year it was Geno and Joe Burrow. It's like, yeah, the numbers are the same, but you know, you'd rather have Joe, just like our numbers are the same between Dak and Patrick Mahomes. We know we're going to take Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's just numbers. And especially, we talked about how they lead the NFL in scoring. They had multiple 40-point games last year.
I think in the last 10 years, the Cowboys have the most 45-plus point games. I think it's almost by double digits. Like, the Cowboys have actually been one of the most explosive offensive teams over the last 10 years, even more so than the Chiefs. They said their offense has actually been more efficient than what the Colts offense was when they had Peyton Manning, which is wild.
Crazy.
But again, I compare them to a high volume score in the NBA, where they put up a lot of points. It's a Tracy McGrady. It's that
T-Mac.
But there's no meaning to. I don't mean to take a shot at T-Mac. I like T-Mac. I got his shoes. I didn't care. I didn't play, but I wanted to have the coolest shoes on the bench. Right? So I wanted the T-Mac. But no, it's that guy, that high volume shooter. puts up a lot of points, but when it comes time to taking over a game, not that guy. And that's Dak Prescott. He's putting up a lot of shots. He's scoring a lot of points. But man, when it comes down to that fourth quarter, when it comes to that winning time, that's where that's lacking as far as that's concerned. With that Mello, someone just said he's the Mello of, and not wrong. Someone else
read it on.
Someone said earlier, did they? Where did Lamar Shelley? Let me go back to Lamar's point. He had a question for you about. He must have caught the back end of your comment about when we were talking about Greg Oden in the Hall of Fame for Ohio State. So he wanted basically to sum up. Oh, there it is. So Lamar says, does Kev not think that Carmelo at Syracuse is Hall of Fame as wait, what? He says, does Kev not think that Carmelo should be in Syracuse's Hall of Fame as a one and done?
No, he should not.
Okay. And that was, I think he caught the back end. I think that's why he was curious your thought.
No, he should not be in the Hall of Fame there. I understand the reason why. He was the best player on the team that won the national trophy, but I think guys like Hakeem Warwick and guys like Jerry McNamara deserve it more than he does. They played 4 years there. They have multiple. It is something he was unable to do during his 1 year there. They won not only regular season Big East championship, but also Big East championship tournaments. They've won Big East Player of the Years. They've obviously won championship there. Deep runs in the tournament outside of that championship year. I think those guys are more deserving of the Hall of Fame to say, hey, you did this during your career. 1 year does not make an entire career.
Shaw, real quick, going back to, and that was about the Greg Oden thing. So Greg Oden is one, and Braxton Miller, 2 of 14 new inductions into the Ohio State Athletics Hall of Fame, which they'll of course have that ceremony during the football season and all this. And we got to about Greg Oden, and Kev said, he had a hot take, and that was he didn't think Greg Oden should be in. And then I looked at him like he was crazy, and then he said his point, and then I'm like, it's actually not a bad point because one season, you play 1 year, you're a one and done. You commit, you blink, and then you're in the NBA, kind of. And and I get that. Like, it's not like some of these guys who were there for 2, 3, 4 years and were part of an entire run, an entire recruiting cycle. I get that. So that's where that debate or the conversation started. Bradley Beal, now everyone throwing in these high volumes. I mean, Dak is Bradley Beal. He's Carmelo.
He's better than Bradley Beal. Now, come on, man. But I mean, I think talking about like the Melos and the Anthony Davises, basically the one and dones, the big splash one and dones. Like, you show up on campus in August and you're gone the second week in April. Come on, man. Come on, dude.
You're not even there for technically a full semester.
Yeah. Because I read Carmelo Anthony's book, and after they won the championship or whatever, he said he didn't go to class, and it wasn't that he didn't go to class because he wanted to leave. It was just like they were just having so much fun, and he was on the verge of being academically ineligible. He's gonna have to go to summer school if he was quote unquote allowed to come back. And he had a meeting with Jim Boeheim. Like, look, man, you can't come back here for multiple reasons. One, you're gonna be a top 3 pick. That's obviously the most important. 2, you ain't going to class. And I'm pretty sure you don't want to spend your summer in Syracuse. I'm sure you're going to want to go and play on the under 18 or whatever USA basketball if you quote unquote came back to school. So you might be academically ineligible. So the fact that you're not really a student, you're not there for the long haul. I just think that you at least 2 seasons to be eligible. And I know in this age of the transfer portal and one and dones, I think that's probably not going to be the most likely thing to ever happen. But like, I just think that, hey, man, you should have to, for lack of a better word, earn your stripes to get into the Hall of Fame of your school, man.
Mm-hmm. What's wild to me is Carmelo, Darko Milicic got drafted before you. You know what's wild? The dynasty that could have been. The Pistons would have been a dynasty. That's what they needed. That guy. That's what they needed. Carmelo don't play defense. That's fine. You don't need him to play defense.
Ben Wallace back
you got Ben. You got Rashid. You got Tayshaun Prince. I mean, you had Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton and him would have been a hell. That would have been that Pistons run would have been absolutely stupid, insane. That's like, I don't know why that's not more of a talked about what could have been. There's a lot of what could have been in sports. That to me is the most underappreciated one as far as that's concerned. The Pistons are that's we're talking about bad organization. That's a bad organization right there. That's NBA, but that's a bad organization. I saw someone say the Texans. The Texans have a lot. They're a noisy organization. I don't think they're a bad organization.
They're a sneeze away. They're a sneeze away.
They're a noisy organization. I don't know if they're a joke of an organization, only because when you're a joke of an organization, you can't overcome some of the craziness that's going on. And there's craziness going on with the ownership group there, right? Like, there's no doubt. Not going to sit there and pretend it's not. But despite the mindset of those individuals at the top, they've made enough good business decisions that have put them in position where you lose Deshaun, and Deshaun, regardless of your opinion of him now, they should not have turned it around so quickly. They're a Super Bowl contender this year. They're a contender this year, right off the bat. I've taken shots at your team before. I was like, I know that there's the Steeler way, but you got teams like the Jaguars who keep recycling and get back to playoff, prominence before the Steelers get it. The Texans have done it twice, and they've done it with two dominant quarterbacks. In the meantime, they're not as buttoned up as the Steelers, but they get the most important piece of that puzzle. They get that damn quarterback right. So
yeah, I think me and you look at jokes differently a little bit. I'm looking at it from like the front office perspective, and I see you guys, and I just don't take you serious. Whereas the athlete themselves are so good, they can overshadow the bad decisions that management and ownership makes. I think that you're looking at it from like wins and losses type of situation. I think it's, to be fair, it probably should be a combination of both. Of like, hey man, if you got a crappy owner and you got crappy players for an extended period of time, you should go in that joke category. But the Vikings a joke? Like, come on. The Vikings a joke? I don't see that at all.
Not taking a shot at your team, but let me ask you, would that be a joke? If I'm a fan of a team that's a joke, would you rather be a Steelers fan or a Texans fan? Because I think Texans fans feel way more confident about the trajectory of where they're going than the Steelers. You feel more like they're not freaking out because a bad year's 9-win season.
Right.
But like, when's the last time you had that excitement of, we could be that 13 Super Bowl?
So I'll tweak your question. If I was a free agent, and I had to choose this upcoming season a team to cheer for, would it be the Steelers or the Texans? Obviously, I would choose the Texans.
Because the Steelers are a joke of an organization. No, the Vikings, that's what threw this all off. Thank you, Shaw, for the topic with the crazy take. He's just standing up for his boy. It's easier to admit that it's a joke of an organization than it being your cheating quarterback, right? Like, Shaw, it's you would rather say the Vikings are a joke of an organization than just say that Kevin and I were probably right about J.J. McCarthy?
I got to look at their record for the last, at least 5 seasons.
But you said it's not about the wins. No, we'll be right back. Kenner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. Kinner and Kev Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. I'm Justin Kinner. He's Kevin Nash. Mr. Kevin Nash, welcome.
What up, though?
Last week, Dave Biddle, we talked about, of course,
Friend.
the fact that coming up, Ohio State will be playing Texas. They'll be playing Alabama, and they'll be playing Georgia. Home and homes with all three of those schools over the next 6 years. And the big question you have to ask is, well, what's the likelihood of all three of those series actually being played out? And everyone's like, well, why wouldn't they? I mean, Ohio State's always been very good at, when you have at Oregon, who was, before, of course, Oregon joined the Big Ten, they did the home and home with them. They did the home and home with Notre Dame. They've done the same thing with Texas in the past. I mean, and I know I'm missing some easy, obvious ones. They play good teams every year. This is the first year I can remember where there hasn't even been a semi. I mean, even TCU, right? I mean, they've at least played in a national championship, they did that with them. So the likelihood that those get played kind of, I don't know, because the one reason that I started thinking about this is because talking with Dave Biddle, we were talking about the fact that, well, when it comes to the college football playoff, when it's at 4, the magic number is 2. You can lose a game and still make the college football playoff. Ohio State can lose to Oregon early in the season and then win the Big Ten championship and still get in, right? Like you can lose a rivalry game as long as it's close and still get in. I know there's been, some teams have lost by double digits and then kind of pushed that notion a little bit, but overall you could lose 1. You lose 2 though, you're done. Cincinnati got into the college football playoff a few years ago because Ohio State lost 2 games. Right. And if Ohio State would not have lost that second game, they would have been in the college football playoff, and Cincinnati would have been an undefeated American Conference champion looking on the outside looking in. That's just the reality of it. But Ohio State, they got that second loss. So what's that magic number with the 12-team college football playoff? Dave Biddle thinks it's 3. I think it's 3. I think Kev thinks it's 3 as well. Is it 3 for you? Do you think 3 is that magic number? I can't see a 4-loss team making a 12-team college football playoff. Or do you think it's lower?
I think you can still lose 3 and make it. Especially in the SEC, because if I'm not mistaken, the conference championship winner gets the auto bid to the
so all conference champions get the auto bid. So 1 through 4, whatever it is 1 through 4, 1 through 5, it's 1 through 4. They'll get the auto bid. And then Notre Dame, and then those teams host.
Yes.
So there's that helps. So, but yeah, Notre Dame will never win that. So that you pretty much know they're always going to be 5 most likely, right? So who knows? It's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, so 1 through 4 is that, as far as that's concerned, conference champion goes.
So I can see that happening. Especially in the SEC where they're still doing divisions. Also, like once the Big Ten does away with divisions, I can actually see that happening too. I mean, if it's a multiple loss team out there, and I think we've actually talked about this before where, there's complacency a ton, especially in basketball, especially in the NBA. Like we saw complacency set in with the Celtics in that game, game 4, where they got blew out by the Mavs or whatever, because they were up 3-0. They knew if they lost, they still had a couple games in their back pocket and they were going home. So they played like crap. And to get 18, 19, 20, 21, 23-year-olds to focus in and it can entire season after, like, hey, we're Ohio State. We're currently ranked number 1. If we lose this game, we're still in it. We're still going to win it. And they ultimately lose. Then that team that already had 3 losses makes the playoff 2. I could see that happening. But a 4-loss team, I'm not sure about. 3 max.
So 3 is potentially the max as well. I agree, especially if that third one comes in the Big Ten championship game. You beat Oregon, you beat Michigan during the regular season, but you stub your toe against Oregon in the rematch in the Big Ten championship game, and that's your 3rd loss or something crazy. So I don't know how you beat those 2, but have 2 of them. But you see my point. Bottom line is
better not.
It's just I think just not all losses are created equal, and that's not moving the goalposts. I think we all know that you could have a good loss. I know people. I think you're one of those. You hate the good loss talking point,
yes.
But I do think that there are good teams who lose to teams they have no business losing to. This is why I do believe that. I do believe in the good loss category. I think that there are teams who lose games against teams that they should not. That's a bad loss. But if you're Ohio State and you found out how to stop a running back that, has the, that has a Michigan jersey, if you lose by a field goal against Michigan, that's a good loss to me. I mean, it's not because the rivalry and you hate those cheaters and this, that, and the other, but that's a good loss. So I think how you lose, not that you lose, it's how you lose that matters. But the magic number is 4. You're not losing 4 and getting in. 3 is the max, and 3 would be kind of pushing it. But the reason that that's important is because, okay, we've got this whole college football playoff era at 4 with barely. Ohio State never loses 3, and if they lose the third, it's that last bowl game or whatever the season, and not even then half the time. So, okay, cool. Who cares about that third loss? But also, the Big Ten has been very protected with it not being very good. I've told you before, I'm not a Big Ten guy, or have not been a Big Ten guy. I think it's a very overrated conference. Outside of Ohio State, and up until Michigan finally started cheating and winning, it really, Penn State was just a very good team. Michigan State was on the downfall. Iowa would have an elite defense once every couple of years, or be good defensively and then elite defensively, but horrible offensively. The Big Ten was nothing that I looked at and said, oh man, that's a great conference. But now, when you got Oregon, who's going to be a top 5 team this upcoming year, along with Ohio State, and Michigan will be in the top 10, right? Do you think they'll be a top 10 team to start? I don't think they should, but they've been.
Sure, why not?
Why not? Okay, well, top 15 at least. So
definitely top 15.
The Big Ten, you had Washington, you add USC, you add Oregon, you add UCLA, which whatever. The bottom line is you're going to run into these big-time powerhouses on the regular now. So I don't think you need to increase the chances of picking up a loss in the non-conference. I think it's going to ruin non-conference. September is going to be preseason football. At least we'll have September as the first real week of the regular season for the National Football League. The first real week of the regular season for college football is going to be their preseason, because I see no incentive to these teams needing to play anyone of substance in that non-conference, because look at these mega conferences now. You are going to get blitzed with tough opponents. We're going to talk about the top On 3 put out their list of the top 10 worst schedules this upcoming season, or hardest schedules. How Michigan's not on there. It was Phil Steele. Phil Steele did not put Michigan as having the top 10 toughest schedule in football. I thought that was insane.
They got Texas,
Oregon, Washington, Ohio State.
Not Washington. Washington's not going to be good this year.
But at Washington, though, I mean, that's still
Washington's going to be horrible.
But still, it's still it's not.
It's a name.
It's not Rutgers, guy. It's not Rutgers.
Rutgers will be better than Washington this year.
And do they play Rutgers too? So, but with that being said, talked about that. Ohio State, the likelihood of them keeping those 6 games on the schedule, those 3 series on the schedule. One thing that Dave Biddle said was, no, they're probably not, because Alabama or Texas or Georgia, they would have to call Ohio State and say, hey, we're afraid to play you. We're going to take it off the schedule. Or Ohio State would have to do the same thing. He thinks those will get played out. He does not think anything like that will be scheduled again after that, because it's just not good business. Well, USC is kind of being dragged through the mud right now, because they tried to get out of their series with LSU. They couldn't. I don't know why they couldn't. I haven't found out why they couldn't, but they had another big showdown with Ole Miss that they had on their non-conference, and they backed out of that. Well, now Lincoln Riley is being ripped for trying to get out of all of these non-conference matchups, but Lincoln Riley's come out and said, there's no point in playing these teams in the non-conference. We are going to be challenged on the regular throughout the regular season. There is no point in trying to make a task more difficult as far as that's concerned. And plus, did you see the cheating national champions from last year? It's not just that they cheated. Did you see their schedule should have been considered cheating with how they played absolutely nobody, Kev?
Yeah, I can't argue with you with that. I'm just going to miss it. That's all I can say. I'm going to miss non-conference games. I'm going to miss the big non-conference game. Me being also a Florida State fan, way back in the day, Florida State was an independent before they joined the ACC, and how they made their name for themselves and to get on the big stage and everything like that was to play at Michigan, to play at Notre Dame, to basically play anybody, anywhere, to try to get their rep up. Like, hey, man, you can't get respect in this game unless you're beating quality opponents. And I think the days of that are going to go by the wayside, because we already see it. Like, we talked about this before when UCF was trying to get the games going with the Florida Gators, and the Gators were like, yeah, do a 10-1 type of thing. And it's like, well, dang, man. I mean, I understand we're UCF and you're Florida, but man, a 10-1, like, goodness gracious, at least a 10-2 or something like that. I'm being a little facetious with the numbers, but you get my point. I just think it's just kind of like, man, it just sucks. Like, I mean, I can't sit here and say like one is good and one is bad. It just sucks that we're not going to get those. The only way we're going to get these big non-conference games are in the college football playoff. And, like you said, the first 4, I believe, get the buys, and then we'll get those other opponents playing at those home sites. It just sucks. It just sucks. It is what it is. It's already bad enough like that the non-conference games are going to like neutral site games, Alabama and Michigan playing in Jerry's World. Like, wait, what? Why aren't they playing in Tuscaloosa? Why aren't they playing at the big house? Like, that would be cool. But no, they're playing at a stale environment that doesn't have, true traditions and stuff like that. But, me and people of my ilk have just to realize This is a business, and it's all about the dollar bills, y'all.
Yeah, it is. And, and on top of that, and by the way, Lincoln Riley, I don't think he's doing the wrong thing.
And why is he the one up there answering the questions? Where is the athletic director?
Well, I think Lincoln Riley also, when he's asked about it and when he says media availability, he could just say no comment. So it's not as if they're doing a press conference announcing that they're not doing this. He's being asked about it. And then, they pull the clip and put it in the article.
Okay.
This, that, the other. Plus Lincoln Riley's an easy target. He's like is he kind of the most, how did he become a villain? Is it just because he turned on Oklahoma to go to the ritzy LA? Is that why? Like, it's as simple as that?
Of course.
Because, man, he was kind of a feel-good story for a bit. Now everyone just, they don't like him.
The Oklahoma gave him everything underneath the sun. When he was asked and tried to push to change defensive coordinators, he refused, doubled down, actually gave that defensive coordinator a raise. They said, fine, coach, we'll do it. And then once the bright lights of LA came a-calling, he went on out there. And it's like, wait, hold on, dude. Like, we gave you everything you wanted. Like, yes, we understand that they're USC, they're a story program, but so are we. But Oklahoma can't compete with LA, I guess.
Yeah. I don't blame him either for that. I know.
Neither do I.
But go Sooners.
Boomer Sooner, baby.
Boomer Sooner, as far as
big year coming. Big year coming.
Last point on this, who this really hurts? I think it's going to hurt big time is Notre Dame, because Notre Dame was always one of those programs that if you're in Alabama, if you're in Ohio State, if you're LSU, if you're one of those bigger programs, you could put them on your schedule as your premier non-conference. But like now the big schools are like, no, especially the SEC, the Big Ten. I don't think you're going to see as many premier Big Ten opponents putting them on their schedule. Same thing with the SEC. And I started to look ahead. So Notre Dame this upcoming season, they're at Texas A&M. Okay, they're at Purdue. Purdue's not like it's a Big Ten school, but I'm not talking about them when I'm talking about the premier Big Ten programs. Okay, 2025, they got the return game with Texas A&M, and then Purdue will be at home. That's wild that they're at Purdue this year. Notre Dame at Purdue. It's kind of cool. Good for them.
Tickets.
Good for Purdue.
Tickets.
So okay, and then they have USC in 2025. So moving forward though, all right, now you got your Wisconsin. And they have at USC, but USC is working to take Notre Dame off the schedule as well. Mm-hmm. They were trying to get out of that. But there's no premier starting in 2027. Michigan State. Now you're getting these Big Ten, ACC, SEC schools, but you're getting the bottom or the middle tier teams. Purdue, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Navy, Clemson's the best team, but right now Clemson doesn't have that oomph that they once did. Michigan State, Wake Forest.
Yeah, they got the ACC teams on a rotation.
Yeah. And it's so Virginia Tech, Boston College, Arkansas, USF. They do have Alabama in 29, but Alabama added them too, the way they added Ohio State. So maybe that stays. But no, Notre Dame's who I see this impacting on multiple fronts. Scheduling, the big schools aren't willing to try to give you that beefed up schedule that you're used to having. No matter how good you are, you'll never finish in the top four.
Yeah, because you don't conference championship.
You'll never host a playoff game.
No, they host the games.
Who?
Notre Dame. Then they wouldn't host.
They wouldn't host.
Oh, so they can't host a playoff.
Only the
game.
top four. Yeah, the top four.
Oh,
so they're getting hit on a lot of fronts. But hey, at least you got that NBC TV money.
The only rebuttal, or I won't even say rebuttal because I think you're right about them being affected. But the devil's advocate. Mm-hmm. The lesser teams that they play, the more likelihood that they go undefeated.
Yep. And that's why I said they'll always be at 5.
Yeah. So
conference champions at 5.
Hey, man, Boston College or Florida State. We'll take Boston College.
Oh, your feelings are hurt. We'll pray for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
They'll always be in it for a chance to win. And, other teams, they'll have to really earn their way into it. Notre Dame is, hey, come on, Navy. Come on, get this butt kicking. Did you see that picture that came out about Notre Dame?
Oh, with the son or with the kids?
Yeah. Ike Taylor's son, Jerome Bettis' son, and Plaxico Burr's son all are going to Notre Dame. All former Pittsburgh Steelers going to Notre Dame to play for Coach Freeman.
They'll never get to watch their kids play a home playoff game. It's unfortunate. Shaw's on hold. Do you want to talk to him when we get back?
And we'll see.
He's going to try to convince us.
If he can keep it under 8 minutes.
Oh, there's a joke there somewhere. Shaw, there's a joke there somewhere, I'm sure. Now, with that being said, Shaw has this commercial break to come up with how he's going to convince us that apparently the Vikings are a joke of an organization. It can't be that maybe J.J. McCarthy is just not good. It's that the Vikings are a joke of an organization. We'll be right back.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a
We're back on 1410 ESPN Radio. It's the Karen and Kev show. We have a couple more minutes here in hour number 2 before we head to the top of the hour. Let's go to the phone lines. We got Shaw waiting on hold. Mr. Shaw, welcome.
You're on the clock.
How you doing, fellas?
What up?
Oh, just another day in hot paradise. Oh, man.
Don't get me started. My air conditioner went out.
We were just talking about that the other day, too. That's. I'm sorry to hear that, bud. Why are the Vikings a joke of an organization? How many world championships have they won?
I believe 0.
How many Super Bowls have they been since 1976?
Goose egg.
I rest my case.
That's just the simple bar you're using. When he
So,
was,
I can go farther, but I'm on the clock. I mean, I can go a lot farther, but I'm on the clock. So,
well, I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, look, I'm not saying that that's like everyone's striving to be the Minnesota Vikings organization. I just don't think they're a joke of an organization. I mean, they win.
I'll bring up two more. I'll bring up two more reasons.
Nope, on the clock.
Kirk Cousins.
No, it was smart to move on from Kirk Cousins. They would have to pay him a lot of money, and he was he's a little bit older. They wanted to reset. Plus, you don't pay Kirk Cousins 40 to 45 mil when you're about to make Justin Jefferson the highest paid wide receiver in football. I thought they made the right choice there. That was the right direction to go. If you were going to pay Kirk Cousins, then you have to move on from Justin Jefferson. If you get a rookie quarterback, you could afford Justin Jefferson. And to me, I thought that was the right direction to go.
If you're going to do with what you're going to do with the rookie quarterback, yeah, you may as well move on. You may as well have brought back Kirk Cousins.
Well, if they would have just listened to Kevin and Kevin, would have listened that he was a bum. I mean, then there you go.
Well, they would have had to pay Kirk Cousins. They would have to pay him, and then they probably wouldn't be able to pay Justin Jefferson. So they went and got
Shucks. Because there's not wide receivers in the draft this year. There wasn't any wide receivers in the draft this year.
I mean, you have the proven commodity in Justin Jefferson, who was potentially the best.
Who's also making $35 million.
That's a problem.
We've had this discussion before. I'm not paying wide receivers and running backs that type of money. I'm not. And then in this draft, when you had this wide receiver class coming out, no. I'm not paying $35 million to a wide receiver. It's not happening.
So let me ask you this. What do you define as a joke organization? Like, I know you ran down like, hey, they haven't won a Super Bowl. They haven't played for a Super Bowl in X amount of decades, yada, yada, yada. So how do you view it? You know how I was viewing it from the standpoint of like, hey, man, your ownership group, your management is jokey. Like, you can look at the debacles that, the Jets have made, how we have the meddling owner in the Cowboys. Justin kind of views it more from a wins-loss situation. So how do you view it?
I view it as both. When you have arguably the best quarterback and wide receiver in the 90s and you allow that to break up the way it broke up and how it all went down, then you have the joke of Brett Favre and you have the Kirk Cousins situation, and you want to sit there and you do, and it's all of it. You don't win. You don't run the organization the Packers can flip on a banana peel and come down with a quarterback that lasts them for 3 decades. There's other organizations out there that run it well.
So let's do this exercise. Let's do this very quick exercise. Very quick.
Mm-hmm.
You say joke or not joke? Bills.
Right. Joke.
Dolphins.
Joke.
Pats.
Not joke.
Jets.
Extreme joke.
Ravens.
Not joke.
Bengals.
Joke.
Browns.
Joke.
Steelers.
Not joke.
Texans.
Joke.
Colts.
Joke.
Jags.
Joke.
Titans.
Until recently, not joke, but they're moving in that direction.
Broncos.
Not joke.
We know the Chiefs aren't. Raiders.
Nope. Joke.
Chargers.
Joke.
So basically, the whole AFC is a joke.
And when you said the two teams you said weren't jokes, and this isn't a shot at your team, I'm not trying to get into debate, but based on what the Steelers are right now, just they win a lot of games, like the Vikings, like the Chargers, like a lot of these teams, they just win games. How are the Steelers not a joke based on your standards at this point?
because they have a standard.
What's the?
And it's more.
But you just said the Colts up until lately. You said up until lately, not joke. So clearly, standards can change.
The Titans, other than, they had a standard, and they decided they wanted to fire it at the end of the season. It's a joke. That's a joke. Sorry, that's just my opinion on it. The Steelers, 99% of organizations in the NFL would love to run their organization the way the Steelers run their organization.
How are they running it though? What are they doing that not a lot of other teams are doing?
How many coaches do they have? How many coaches have they had in their entire history?
I don't know the last time I went to a stadium and they had banners hung up for how little coaches they've had.
How many? I mean, the Browns have went through more coaches in the last 20 years than they have their
my
entire
team's honor, dude. I'm not.
I just use the Browns as the easiest example. I could use many others. The Bengals as well. I mean, it is what it is. But everybody, it's not all about the winning and the losing. It's about what do you do as an organization. What do the
Steelers do?
How do you treat coach?
I'm not saying they're a joke of an organization, but I'm using.
I
know, but I just don't want you to.
Actually,
what do the Steelers do? That's what I'm just trying to ask. What do they do?
They treat their players. They keep their coaches.
A humanitarian award.
You asked me the question, but then you want to argue my answer.
Okay, you're right. My fault. I'll let you answer. My bad.
So
wrong. No, I'm just joking.
I mean, we can move. Obviously, you don't think I'm correct, so I mean, it's fine.
For me, I just like. So if we're playing this joke or not joke game, like we talked about, you believe, 95% of the teams in the AFC are jokes. So
because they don't want to win.
So
they don't do what they need to do to go win.
So do you believe a joke of a franchise could win the Super Bowl?
If they allow their team to do what they're supposed to do, yes, they could.
So just make sure I got this right. You said the Bills are a joke too, right?
The way they run their organization right now, yes.
So hypothetically, if the Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl this upcoming season, will they still remain a joke to you?
They won't. But hypothetically, cows could jump over the moon this offseason.
Don't be like that. That's not fair. Because if the Bengals were literally Aaron Donald going werewolf mode on their offensive line from hitting Jamar Chase for a game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. So if they would have held up and Burrow makes that throw to Jamar and they win the Super Bowl, they automatically come off the joke list. I don't think that's right.
No, it's not right. That's not what I'm saying.
But you said it for the Bills.
No, I didn't say that they would not be off the list. I did not say that. I said it's a possibility, but no. Because my thing about it is like they're not winning it this year. Not with what they just did this offseason.
But just because you
running the organization like a joke.
You have a star quarterback. They contend for the division every year. They're regularly in the playoffs. Like, how is that a joke of an organization? I'm not a big Bills Mafia guy, but like, I don't put the Bills in that category. They're a regular contender right now.
You and I just look at it differently.
So in your viewpoint, the only teams out of the AFC that could win the Super Bowl are the Pats, Ravens, Steelers.
No.
But you just said about the jokes.
I said the organization's not a joke. That does not mean they're going to. I think they could win the Super Bowl.
No. What I'm saying is, you said the teams that are jokes couldn't win the Super Bowl, but you said the Pats were not a joke, Ravens were not, Steelers were not. Yeah, that's same difference.
They could.
Same difference.
Tomato, potato.
So I'm just saying, like
Chiefs, Ravens.
You said the Pats, Ravens, Steelers.
Your AFC Super Bowl, I'm telling you right now in almost July, the representative of the AFC will be one of probably three teams. The Chiefs, the Ravens, and maybe the Bengals.
So
one of three teams.
Okay, let's go to the NFC. The Cowboys.
Joke.
So I think they have the talent. Obviously, they got CeeDee Lamb. They got Parsons. They got a real good defense. Not only Parsons, they got Lawrence on the other side, if I'm not mistaken, on the D line.
The
Dak
team
as
this year
well.
is not a joke. The organization's ran like a joke. Two different things.
What are they doing that the Steelers aren't doing? Not fulfilling what their base has.
How many coaches have they went through in the last 10 years?
Why is that? I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but I mean, the Cowboys aren't really known
it's
for
continuity.
Hold on, but the Cowboys aren't really known as an organization. I mean, if anything, fans get pissed because they hold on to coaches too long. But they're not in the Steelers category by any means as far as that goes. But like, I don't know what that
3 in my lifetime.
Yeah. So the Steelers holding on to a coach that has not fulfilled. I mean, getting them to a Super Bowl, yes, that's it's not saying that's nothing, but I mean, they have been
won one as well.
No, one, yes, but I'm just saying like that's not who the Steelers are. That's not who Mike Tomlin is anymore. And you put them in that category, and I just don't understand that because they're not doing anything. There are so many organizations. The Texans have done more winning, have done more getting franchise defining quarterbacks. They have done way more things than the Steelers have in the last 10 years.
Have they done more money? Who's won more Super Bowls since 2000?
So we are moving the generational goalposts at this point.
No, we're not moving anything. Winning's winning.
Your shoulders are getting tired.
If you don't win the Super Bowl, you're not winning anything. That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Kobe Bryant mentality. Did you win the whole thing? No, then you didn't win.
So the Steelers are a joke. That's my point. Based on your standards.
In your opinion.
No, based on your standards.
You don't value.
Just so we're clear, I don't think the Steelers are a joke of an organization. I'm saying they're a joke of an organization based on your standards.
No,
so you're allergic to this mess. You're sneezing all over the place.
But anyhow, I also wanted to talk about the college football thing that you just brought up. The Notre Dame can host a playoff game.
I know. I got that. I got wrong big time. That was on me. Like you just
okay.
did with that.
And then my other part of it was I think it's just too early to say that we'll never see those big games again. We thought a lot of things that were going to happen when the 14 playoff came that didn't play out the way we thought they were at the beginning of the 14 playoff. So to say right now, when we haven't even seen one season of the 12-team playoff yet, and don't take this as I'm a huge component and a huge advocate of the 12-team playoff because I'm not. But to sit there and say that we'll never see big-time regular season games again, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, a little bit to your guys' favor, the big time matchups we're going to see are in the conference because all the conferences are turning to 2 conferences. So,
yeah, like some Ohio State or Michigan, some of those big non-conference games. I mean, now Ohio State, Oregon's a big, Michigan, Oregon, that's a Big Ten showdown.
Right.
But that was always the big September showdown, like the non-conference showdown. So we're like those. I don't think we're losing anything from that regards. I also think, and like Kev, like when you're like, man, I'm really going to miss it. I'm like, you're upset about one Saturday a year. Because technically teams don't really over challenge themselves, right? Like, so now we're like, it's going to be a very boring September coming up for a lot of teams and moving forward. Now, again, I say that a lot of these teams, they still have a lot of games on contract for the next 6-7 years.
Yeah.
So we may not notice this change for about the amount of time that the 4-team college football playoff was around. And by the time we get there, I'm sure they would have added 10 more teams. But Shaw, hey man, good talk. Good hearing from you. And we'll talk soon.
Yep. Later. Peace. Go Blue.
You gotta be quick on that hang up button, dude.
He's lucky I didn't hang up on him during that. I don't know what that was. Everyone has their opinion. See, then he started quoting you. Everyone has an opinion. Blah blah blah. Then that's how he backed me in the corner every time. Well, that's just how you think. This is how I think. Well, then how am I supposed to argue with you when you put it that way? But at the same time, he was moving them goalposts, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, I do not think your organization is a joke. I think that they need to increase the urgency on accomplishing what all franchises want. What made them great was the urgency to win Super Bowls. I just think that they're stagnant in that right now. Russell Wilson might be a step in that right direction. Who knows? But my point is,
hopefully I'm wrong about Russ.
It was the whole thing about, based on his standard,
right,
putting the Steelers in the elite category was where I was like, well, hold on. Technically, but all these other organizations, they've been winning at a higher level than the Steelers for the last 6, 7, 8 years, and you're putting them in that category. But the Steelers, well, what they did in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and that one time in the 2000s, like 2 times in the 2000s. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the records. Pretty gaudy records there. Pretty gaudy.
Pretty gaudy.
Pretty gaudy.
Big church going guy, are you? Pretty gaudy. Kenner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio. I'm not going to read the comments. I mean, I am, but I'm going to get distracted. We're already way over. I was doing good on the clock. The clock management was going very well until now, but nonetheless. Kenner and Kev, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Hey, let me tell you about the advantages of driving with my friends at Cordell Transportation. First of all, for the new